In the cold, empty void of space, Captain Tarek Sunar faces an impossible decision. 5 children stranded on a dying freighter, but only one can be saved. With the clock ticking down, he's told to follow the rules. Choose one, or let them all die. But Tarek isn't like the others. Driven by his past and a promise to protect the innocent, he defies the system and risks everything to save them all. With the Galactic Authority closing in and pirates on their tail, will Tarek's defiance cost him everything, or will his actions change the galaxy forever? Watch as humanity fights back against impossible odds in this heart-stopping, high-stakes journey. Only one question remains: who will live and who will be left behind? If you're new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move to this wonderful story. Captain Tarek Sunar sat alone. In the control room of the dusty outpost, the hum of his console the only sound in the stillness of space. His uniform, once sharp and crisp, now hung loosely on his frame. The boots he wore were scuffed and worn from years of service, each step echoing the weariness that had slowly crept into his bones. The war had ended 2 years ago, but peace, like the distant stars outside his window, felt unreachable. For him, peace had never truly come. His fingers hovered over the console as they always did in moments of stillness. He glanced at the monitor, the blinking lights from the control panel casting a soft glow on his tired face. The screen in front of him showed only emptiness, the vast expanse of the Xylan belt, where nothing ever seemed to change. Yet today, something did. A faint signal blinked across his screen, a red light flashing weakly, indicating an emergency. Distress signal, Tarek muttered under his breath, his eyes narrowing. The signal was weak, almost fading, but there was no mistaking. His mind raced. This far out, who's in trouble now? He tapped a few buttons, trying to enhance the transmission, but the signal remained faint and broken. Yet there was something more, a specific distress code that he recognized immediately. The message was clear, though it came through in fragmented bursts. Alien freighter 042, life forms detected 5. Tarek's eyes widened. 5 lives? His heart skipped a beat. It wasn't the number that caught him off guard, though. It was the fact that the freighter was from the Valmaran fleet. Enemies turned reluctant allies after the war. Seeing their ships now was rare, and seeing one in distress was unheard of. He ran a quick scan through his system. It was a standard protocol for every rescue operation, but what he found shook him. Life forms detected 5. Tarek leaned forward, his fingers trembling slightly as he read the next set of data. Estimated time until life support collapse, 46 minutes. He rubbed his tired eyes. 46 minutes. The freighter was drifting, barely hanging on to life. He could already feel the pull of urgency in his chest, the weight of the responsibility pressing down on him. Who were they? What were they doing this far out in space? And why were they so far from the safety of their own territories? The next data set was more alarming. Tarek's eyes scanned the screen quickly. Children detected, life forms estimated. Children? Tarek felt his stomach tighten. Children were the most vulnerable beings in space. The most fragile. If they were out here, something had gone horribly wrong. His mind flashed back to a moment from his own past. A moment he hated remembering. His own daughter, Myran, had been just a child when she was taken from him. That memory, the sight of her small hand slipping from his as they told him another child had a better chance, came rushing back. No. He couldn't think like that. This wasn't about him. He had a chance to save these children. He couldn't fail them. The rescue drone, hovering silently in the corner of the control room, clicked on. Its smooth, emotionless voice broke the silence. Captain Sunar, Protocol 7 and 9 applies. Only one life form can be extracted. You must select a single life form for retrieval. Tarek froze, staring at the screen in disbelief. Only one. His throat tightened, the words sticking in his chest. You want me to choose one? The drone did not respond. It didn't need to. The protocol was clear. It was standard procedure. when systems were failing, when energy was limited, when lives were on the line, only one could be saved. Damn it, Tarek muttered under his breath. He knew what the rule said. He knew what the protocol required. But in his heart, he felt something stir. The urge to act, to go against the system, was overwhelming. But there was something else too. A fear, deep down. A fear that if he failed to follow the rules, if he defied the system completely, there would be consequences. Dire ones. The monitor blinked again, the words flashing across the screen. Time remaining. 45 minutes. Tarek stood up from his chair, his knees creaking as he moved toward the control panel. His heart pounded, his mind racing. He grabbed his jacket, the fabric torn at the shoulder. The name tag still read Sunar, though it barely hung on anymore, faded and frayed. He slipped it on, feeling the weight of his decision settling on his shoulders. This was no longer about protocols. This was about making a choice. He moved towards the launch pad. 5 children. He couldn't leave them to die. He wouldn't. As he reached for the shuttle's controls, the drone's voice echoed in his ear again. Captain Sunar, please prepare for immediate transfer. Time remaining, 42 minutes. Shut up, Tarek growled, slamming his fist onto the console. He couldn't wait for the system to fail. He needed to act now before it was too late. The shuttle shook slightly as it detached from the outpost, its engines humming to life. Tarek's eyes locked onto the screen where the freighter appeared like a ghost in space, floating barely visible against the backdrop of distant stars. 5 lives. Only one could be saved. But Tarek refused to choose. He refused to follow a rule that was cold and heartless. They are just kids, he whispered to himself. They deserve a chance. As the shuttle sped toward the drifting freighter, Tarek felt the weight of the galaxy pressing down on him. The moment he stepped onto that freighter, there would be no turning back. He would face the consequences of his actions, but he didn't care. He couldn't live with the regret of choosing one life over the others. Not again, he whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the shuttle's engines. Not again. Tarek's hands trembled as the freighter grew closer, the vastness of space pressing in on him from all sides. The rescue shuttle's engines hummed steadily beneath him, its sleek frame cutting through the emptiness like a ghost in the dark. He could feel the weight of time closing in on him, each second a reminder of how little remained to make the right choice. No, to make the only choice he could live with. The freighter loomed ahead, a hulk of metal drifting aimlessly, its once pristine hull now covered in patches of disrepair and damage. The pale green light of the station's emergency beacon blinked weakly in the distance, casting an eerie glow on the ship's exterior. Tarek's heart pounded in his chest. 5 children. He could save them all. He knew he could, but the rules, the protocol, it kept coming back to him. Tarek had spent his life following rules. The military taught him to respect them. The Galactic Authority drilled them into his very bones. But this was different. This wasn't war. This wasn't about cold, calculated decisions where one life was weighed against another. This was about something bigger, something human. As the shuttle neared the freighter, Tarek's gaze darted to the display console. The blinking red light and the sterile, emotionless numbers taunted him. He knew what he had to do, but the fear was gnawing at him like a hunger he couldn't silence. He knew the danger. If I don't follow the protocol, everyone dies. The freighter's internal systems were already failing. The life support was down to critical levels, and the extraction chamber's energy could barely support one life form, let alone 5. But still, he refused to choose. Captain Sunar, the drone's voice crackled in his ear, cold and automated. You are instructed to initiate the protocol for the one selected life form. Failure to comply will result in... Shut up, Tarek snapped, his voice cutting through the sterile command like a knife. His fingers hovered over the console as he prepared to override the system. He didn't care about the drone's warnings anymore. He had made his decision. The freighter's hatch opened slowly, its once shiny steel now dulled and scorched from years of wear. Tarek's shuttle docked with a small thud, a low groan reverberating through the ship's hull as he engaged the lock. He felt the weight of the moment settle on him like a thick fog. I can save them. I will save them. The door to the rescue chamber slid open with a hiss, and Tarek stepped into the cold, dimly lit interior of the freighter. The air smelled stale, thick with the faint scent of burnt wires and singed metal. He moved quickly, his eyes scanning the darkened space, and soon he spotted the first chamber. Inside, 5 children lay motionless, their bodies suspended in the dark blue liquid of the cryopods. Tarek's breath caught in his throat as he saw them. Each one different, each one unique. The first child, a girl with soft, iridescent scales and wide, innocent eyes, floated peacefully in her pod. Her features were delicate, a beautiful blend of alien and human-like qualities. Tarek felt his heart skip a beat as he looked at her, seeing the innocence in her face that reminded him of his own daughter, Moran. I'm not leaving her behind. He moved to the next pod and his eyes widened. The child inside was unlike anything he had ever seen, a small alien with 6 arms, glowing skin, and sharp features. The child seemed almost unreal, like something out of a dream. Tarek's mind raced. He could save this one, this remarkable being, but only one. The third pod was even more surprising. A small creature no larger than a house cat was curled up inside, its fur soft and matted. It had 3 large eyes, each one blinking slowly as it shivered in the freezing pod. Tarek hesitated for a moment, his hand hovering over the console. He didn't know if it was his compassion or the raw instinct that pushed him to override the system, but he couldn't stop. He had to keep going. Unauthorized action detected, the drone announced, its voice cutting through the silence. Tarek's hand shook as he punched in the override code. The warning flashed on the screen, but he ignored it, his mind made up. The next pod contained a child wrapped in fire, literally. Its body was translucent, glowing with embers beneath the surface of its skin. Tarek felt the warmth of the flames, radiating from the pod even though it was encased in ice. He couldn't help but be in awe of the creature despite the danger it might represent. They're just children, Tarek thought, his chest tight with emotion. Just children. He moved to the last pod, and his breath caught in his throat. The 5th child was unlike the others, more human than alien, but still very much otherworldly. The child had dark, swirling skin like liquid night, and her eyes glowed a soft, ethereal silver. She floated in the pod, motionless, and Tarek felt a pang in his chest. He reached out, his fingers trembling as he touched the cold surface of the pod. She's dying. Tarek's chest tightened with desperation. He knew he couldn't save all of them. He had already ignored the protocol. The system was failing fast and the power was running out. But as he stared at the child with the glowing silver eyes, a surge of determination rose within him. No, I won't leave them behind. He began to work quickly, moving between the pods, rerouting power to the extraction systems, and manually overriding the protocols. Sweat poured down his face as he worked, his heart racing. The warning lights flashed and the system's voice continued to protest. But Tarek didn't stop. He could hear the soft whimpers of the children, as though they were already aware of what was happening, of the decision that was being made for them. Warning, unauthorized override in progress. The drone said again, its voice more urgent now. All life support will fail. Cease immediately. Tarek's vision blurred, but he couldn't bring himself to care. The rules no longer mattered. What mattered was that these children, these innocent lives, were depending on him. The first pod opened with a hiss, and Tarek gently cradled the child inside his arms. The girl with the shimmering scales blinked up at him, confused and frightened, but she reached for him with trembling hands. It's okay, Tarek whispered, his voice hoarse. You're safe now. He didn't wait. He moved on to the next pod and the next, extracting each child one by one. He felt his strength beginning to wane, his suit growing heavier as the life support systems continued to fail. But he pushed on. For each child, he felt something shift inside of him, a connection, a bond he couldn't explain. They were just children, but in that moment, they became his responsibility. He wouldn't fail them. Tarek worked through the pain, through the exhaustion until there were no more pods to open. The children were free, alive. and now they were his family. But even as he looked down at the exhausted faces of the children he had saved, something nagged at the back of his mind. I've defied the system. What would come next? Would the galaxy hunt him down for his actions? Would they see him as a hero or a criminal? He didn't have time to answer that question. The freighter was still dying, and so was he. Tarek stood, in the dim light of the freighter, his breath shallow and ragged. The children, now safe, huddled together near the last of the cryopods, their eyes wide with a mix of awe and confusion. Tarek, his body sore and exhausted, watched them closely, his heart still racing from the desperation of the rescue. The systems were failing rapidly, and every passing second seemed to stretch into eternity. The freighter's halls groaned under the weight of its crumbling infrastructure, the air heavy with the smell of melting wires and scorched metal. Outside, the ship's thin hull space stretched out endlessly, cold and indifferent. The children, now awake and breathing, seemed to sense the danger around them. Their eyes flicked nervously to Tarek, then back to the now silent pods where the others had once been. But as the relief of saving these 5 children began to sink in, Tarek's triumph was interrupted by the loud, insistent hum of the control panel, which continued to flash with warnings. His hand hovered over the damaged console, his fingers trembling, knowing the damage was already irreversible. The freighter was dying, and so was his rescue shuttle. But the immediate danger was not from the ship. It was from the very system he had defied. Unauthorized action detected. The cold, mechanical voice of the rescue drone echoed through the quiet of the chamber. Protocol violation has been reported. Failure to comply will result in further system consequences. Tarek closed his eyes for a moment, the weight of the voice pressing down on him. His hand curled into a fist, his knuckles white with the strain of his decision. I don't care, he muttered to himself. I couldn't leave them behind. But his defiance had already set a dangerous chain of events in motion. The drone's voice was now joined by the deeper, more resonant hum of external communications. He could feel it, that familiar pressure from the authorities. The Galactic Authority was watching. Their eyes were already on him. They were coming for him. A soft chime echoed through the room, and the console flickered back to life. A new message appeared on the screen, blinking with a cold urgency. Incoming Galactic Authority transmission. Tarek didn't hesitate. He opened the communication channel, his mind spinning with thoughts of what would come next. Would they acknowledge his actions as heroic, or would they brand him a criminal for going against the established laws? The screen flickered and a face appeared. Sharp features, piercing eyes, and a cold, unforgiving expression. This was the face of the Galactic Authority, Captain Tarek Sunar. The voice was smooth but edged with a tone of authority. You are in violation of Directive 7A. Your actions in this rescue mission have breached protocol and jeopardized the galactic peace. Tarek's jaw tightened. The cold, emotionless voice echoed the same words he'd heard too many times, words that always followed orders, never questioning them. The system did not care about individual lives. It cared about efficiency and maintaining control. But I didn't sign up to follow orders blindly, he thought bitterly. You have overridden multiple security systems and defied direct instructions, the officer continued. You are now in violation of galactic law, Captain. You have chosen to save 5 lives, which the current system was not equipped to handle. This has resulted in severe risk to your life, and the children's lives as well. You are ordered to cease all activities and return to base immediately. Failure to comply will result in severe consequences. Tarek's hand hovered over the console, his fingers twitching with anger. He glanced over at the children who were now watching the screen with confused, fearful expressions. He didn't know if they understood the gravity of the situation, but he knew that it was not just his life that was at stake anymore. Their lives too hung in the balance. You want me to leave them? Tarek's voice cracked, his anger breaking through his calm exterior. He felt the weight of the situation pressing down on him like the cold hand of inevitability. You're telling me to let them die because of a rule? The officer's gaze didn't waver. We told you the rules, Captain. The system exists for a reason. It keeps things efficient, keeps people alive by making hard decisions. You've endangered this entire operation. We cannot allow your actions to go unpunished. Tarek didn't hear the rest. His thoughts raced, and the weight of what he had done settled heavily in his chest. He didn't care about their laws or their cold logic. I did what was right. I'm not leaving them, not now, not ever. Tarek's voice was firm. He turned off the comms, the officer's cold words still lingering in the air like a shadow. His heart raced, adrenaline pumping through his veins, not just from the fear of what the authority might do to him, but from the overwhelming urge to protect the lives he had saved. Tarek turned to the children, who were now gathered around him, their faces filled with confusion and awe. They were waiting for him, trusting him to guide them through this impossible situation, and he wouldn't fail them. As he moved toward the emergency panel to reroute more power, the comms flared back to life again. This time, the message was different. "This is a warning, Captain Sunar." The voice was deeper, more threatening. "We are sending a fleet of ships to your location. The galaxy does not accept acts of defiance like this. You will be detained and held accountable for your actions. Return the children to us. If you do not comply, you will face consequences greater than you can imagine." Tarek's heart raced, but he didn't flinch. The weight of the universe seemed to press down on him, but he wouldn't back down. He wasn't just protecting these children anymore. He was protecting a future where the system didn't get to decide who mattered and who didn't. Not today. I'm not going anywhere. And neither are they. The comms fell silent. For a brief moment, Tarek was alone with the children again, their faces full of uncertainty. The freighter groaned beneath him, its systems on the brink of collapse. Tarek had no idea what would happen next, but he was ready to face it. Outside, in the cold void of space, the Galactic Authority's ships were on their way, coming to stop him. But Tarek had already made his choice. No matter the cost, he would not let these children down. The universe could change, the laws could bend, but for now, he would keep them safe. They would survive, together, no matter what it took. The stars. Outside, the freighter flickered distant and silent as Tarek prepared for the inevitable confrontation. He wasn't ready to face the galaxy's wrath, but he was ready to fight for what was right. And in that moment, he realized something. He wasn't just fighting for these 5 alien children. He was fighting for the soul of the galaxy itself. The freighter trembled under the stress of its failing systems. The walls groaned as if in pain, the lights flickering intermittently, casting long shadows that danced eerily across the floor. Tarek stood at the control panel, sweat dripping down his face, his breath shallow. The power was running out faster than he could reroute it. He had no illusions. He knew this ship was on borrowed time. And so was he. The children huddled in the corner, their eyes wide with fear, but also with something else, something he hadn't expected. Trust. They were trusting him to see this through. They had been saved, but their journey wasn't over. None of them were safe as long as they were still aboard this dying freighter, with the Galactic Authority on its way, and the Black Fang Syndicate hunting them like vultures circling above. Tarek's hands moved swiftly over the control panel, reconfiguring systems, trying to keep the ship afloat for just a little longer. His body ached, and his mind was foggy from exhaustion, but he couldn't stop. Not now. The drones had transmitted the unauthorized extraction footage to the Galactic Authority. They had seen everything, and their response was inevitable. He could hear it in their cold mechanical words. "You will pay for your defiance." Outside the freighter, the stars burned cold and indifferent. A fleet of Galactic Authority ships loomed closer, their dark silhouettes blocking out the light of distant suns. The sound of their engines echoed through the vast emptiness of space, each passing second bringing them closer to the freighter. Tarek's heart raced as he glanced back at the children, who were still huddled together, the weight of their collective gaze pressing on him. Suddenly, the ship shook violently as if struck by a thunderbolt. Tarek staggered, grabbing onto the console for support. The freighter had taken a hit, He could feel it deep in the hull, a sickening thud that rattled his bones. The Black Fang Syndicate had arrived. Incoming hostile vessels detected. The drone's emotionless voice cut through the tension like a knife. Multiple ships approaching. Pirate fleet identified. Black Fang Syndicate. Tarek cursed under his breath. The Black Fang Syndicate was the worst kind of pirate scum. A ruthless band of scavengers. Merciless in their pursuit of anything they could steal. They didn't come to rescue. They came to claim what was left behind, and now they were here. Tarek had no weapons, no fleet, and no reinforcements. It was just him, the children, and a dying ship. The first pirate vessel docked with the freighters, underbelly with a deafening clang. Tarek's eyes narrowed as the metallic sound echoed through the ship. He could hear the pirates' harsh voices and the clanging of their boots on the metal floors as they made their way through the ship. They would be here soon. And when they found out what Tarek had done, how he had defied the system, saved these children, they wouldn't hesitate to make him pay. Tarek turned to the children. Lisa, the shimmering-skinned child, stood closest to him. She was still weak but alert, her glowing eyes flicking between Tarek and the doorway, sensing the danger approaching. Kip, the small, furry child, clutched his arms around his chest, trembling but standing firm. Oren, the child of light and shadow, had his eyes closed as if sensing something beyond the physical realm. Asha, the shadow girl, stood like a silent sentinel, her dark skin swirling with an ethereal energy. And the final child, the Deucin, had not said a word since Tarek rescued him. His glowing eyes studied Tarek with a curious intensity that sent chills down his spine. You can't protect all of us. Asha's voice broke through the silence, her words spoken softly, almost as if she were speaking to herself. She stepped closer to Tarek, her expression full of uncertainty. They're coming, they won't stop. I'll protect you, Tarek said, his voice hoarse. I won't let them hurt you. Asha looked at him for a long moment before nodding, slowly. The others too seemed to accept his words, their faces set with determination. It was clear. Tarek wasn't just their savior anymore. He was their protector, and as long as he drew breath, he would fight for them. Outside, the pirates were making their move. The freighter's interior shook again, and the lights flickered once more as the Black Fang Syndicate's ships latched onto the freighter's hull. The airlock hissed and the sound of boots hitting the floor echoed throughout the ship. Pirates boarding, the drone warned, its voice now filled with a sense of urgency. Hostile forces detected, preparing for conflict. Tarek took a deep breath, his pulse pounding in his ears. He glanced at the children once more, each one waiting for him to make a move. But what could he do? He had no weapons, no armor, and no chance of winning a fight against a group of pirates that outnumbered him. His heart sank as he realized that their lives were in his hands and he had no idea how he would protect them. But then something unexpected happened. Lisa, the shimmering child, stepped forward, her eyes glowing brightly. A soft hum filled the air as her skin began to glow with increasing intensity, and Tarek felt a strange pull in his chest. He had never seen anything like this before, an alien child exuding such raw power. The energy radiating from her was palpable, the air around them thick with it. I won't let them hurt you. Her voice echoed in Tarek's mind, not through words, but through a connection deeper than speech. Her glowing hands raised, and a ripple of energy surged through the air, knocking the first pirate off his feet. He landed with a crash, his weapon clattering to the ground. Tarek stared, stunned. What is happening? The pirate who had fallen scrambled to his feet, eyes wide with shock and confusion. What in the stars is this? He muttered, his voice trembling. Before he could react, Oren stepped forward. His body began to shimmer with light as he raised his arms, and the entire hallway seemed to warp. The pirate, disoriented by the sudden change in space around him, stumbled backward, clutching his head as if the very air was pressing against him. Get them out of here, Tarek. Oren's voice echoed, clearer than it had ever been before. Now. The rest of the pirates had begun to retreat, their confusion palpable. They hadn't expected this. These weren't just children. They were something else. They were powerful, and they weren't going down without a fight. Tarek's heart pounded, and for the first time in what felt like forever, he smiled. The children were no longer just helpless beings. They were capable of defending themselves, and in that moment they were saving him. Tarek grabbed the children, ushering them toward the nearest escape pod. "Get in, now." He had no idea how much longer they had before the pirates regrouped and launched a counterattack. He wasn't sure how much longer he could keep fighting, but he knew this. He would never leave them behind. Not again. The last pirate, their leader, stood in the doorway, watching them with a sneer. "You can't protect all of them, human," she hissed. "The galaxy won't let you get away with this." Tarek raised his head, locking eyes with the leader. "The galaxy can't stop me." With that, the escape pod door slammed shut, and Tarek hit the launch button. The ship shook violently as they ejected from the freighter, the violent explosion of the Black Fang Syndicate's ship tearing through the empty space behind them. Tarek's body was battered, his suit was damaged, and his mind was overwhelmed. But one thing was clear: he had saved them all,